Welcome back to the classroom, where you, me, and my trusty whiteboard go through matters of the body, mind, heart, and spirit in a relatively easy to understand format. Today, we're going to talk about a really interesting topic. We're going to talk about how to effectively draw healthy boundaries. And the reason why that's important is because in today's world, with so much suffering and pain, there's a lot of people that need help. And just as much people as there who need help, I know just as much people who want to help. Because for me, firmly, I believe that we're here to be our brother's keeper. That's one of the main purposes that we're here for, as far as I'm concerned in my own life. That's what I've seen. That we're here to look after one another. And throughout my life, I would have looked after other people and, to the best of my ability. But sometimes the need for help would have been so dire that I would have found myself burnt out and unable to effectively help the next person or even help myself for that matter. And so over the course of many, many years, I've crystallized 3 rules for drawing boundaries and helping people that helps to keep me from burnout whilst also helping me be available to be helpful when I can. So today's class is, and it's a bit of a mouthful, but I think it gets the point across. Dr. Roshan's 3 rules for drawing harmonious boundaries. Almost ran out of space, guys, but we fit it in there. Right. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but it gets the points across. The idea of today's class is just 3 simple guidelines that will help us in a decision making. Should I help? Should I not help? And once we get past that initial question, because this class is geared towards people whose initial desire is to help. And that's a lot of you, I know. But once we get past that initial question, should I help or should I not help? Then the question now, it begs the question, well, how much do I help? Do I throw my whole body and mind into it? Or do I give a little? Do I hold back? What do I do? And these guidelines that I've crystallized through my own experience help me in that decision-making process. So the first one, I'll use different colors just to make it pop a little bit. The first one is, rule or guideline number 1 is, don't help unless asked to help. Now, I know this might make some of us uncomfortable, but this is really, really, really important. Because the reason why I came to this conclusion was that many times in my life, because my natural instinct was to help, and many of you, your natural instinct is to help as well, because if we see our brother or sister suffering, and we have something we just give, a lot of times it blew up in my face, or it didn't turn out the way I wanted it, or the time and effort and care and concern and compassion that I would have given, it wasn't received with a little bit of gratitude. It wasn't received in a way that I sort of expected that it would be received. And so the reason I concluded was that that person, as much as they're in dire need for help, they weren't ready for it. They weren't ready to receive that help. It could be for multiple reasons. It could be that, perhaps their ego might make it a bit difficult for them to accept the help. For me, the main reason in my mind as to why I think so is because we all have our own paths in life to walk. We all have our own journey to make, and we all have our trials and tribulations with which we have to overcome. And in the act of overcoming those trials and tribulations, we grow. We learn compassion. By dealing with a difficult person, we learn patience. In dealing with someone who treats us bad, we learn love. We battle resentment. And all of those things. And so, if life wants to teach us a virtue, it gives us the opposite of that virtue. So we have to now embody that virtue to be able to overcome it. And sometimes we might be seeing that person's battle from the outside and say, hey, this person is in need for help, let me step in. It might be a child, it might be a spouse, it might be a parent, somebody close to us, because we care for that person. But we have to remember, no matter how close that person is to us, at the end of the day, they have their own path to walk. And so for me, if the person isn't ready for help, then it will not end well for either person, simply because they may feel that you're sort of throwing yourself on them. Conversely, you might feel taken advantage of. And so it's really important for me that, hey, if someone needs help, I will most certainly be there. If they ask for it, I will be there. But if they don't ask for it, I will watch, and I will be observant, and I'll make sure they're okay. Obviously, their life is in danger. Obviously, if some great catastrophe is about to happen, then fair enough. But otherwise, I think it's important that we respect that person's boundary. So this is the first rule, or the first guideline in drawing harmonious boundaries. The other one is equally important. So let's say the person does ask for help. What is asked for must match what is offered. Now this is fairly simple to understand. Let's include the number. So the idea behind this rule is that if someone comes to you and all they want is some money, and here you are willing to give them a job, then that's different. What is asked for is not what is being offered. If you have a young child, for instance, and you want to show them the way, you want to give them the wisdom that you have gleaned over the many years, but all they want is a drop to go to a party, for instance. All they want is, they don't want to hear the talk, they don't want to hear the wisdom. All they want is a solution. Could you bail me out of this problem? Could you just fix this for me? They're not interested in the wisdom that's being offered. And so this also leads to a lot of heartache and pain for both people, because on one hand, what the person is asking for is not given, and on the other hand, the other person who is helping, they don't feel like, they feel disappointed in the person, for instance. So this is really important that, hey, if the person actually asks for help, what I am willing to help with must actually match with what the person wants. Because if it doesn't match up, it's a no-go, unfortunately. And again, these are fairly self-explanatory, but it took years. It took years and years of, a lot of, wiping off the smoke from stuff blowing up in my face to be able to arrive at these things. And finally, this is probably the most important rule. It is, don't shaft yourself or your loved ones to help someone else. This is super important. Someone, S-O-M. Yep. So don't shaft yourself or your loved ones to help someone else. This is the third and probably most important rule. There's a phrase, there's a saying that I hear people say. If, I want to help so much, I want to be there. If I had my last red dollar in my pocket, I would give it to somebody. But then the sort of question that pops up into my mind is, well, if you give the last dollar to someone else, then it implies now that you have nothing. And you will now be in need of help to get from somebody else. And so that is what the metaphor is. The metaphor is that I will give everything I have to someone and do without. But if you are doing without and you have no resources, we have dependents. We all, as adults, have dependents, whether it's our job, whether it's our spouse, our children, our parents, our siblings, we all have dependents. We have to remember that. And so we cannot be without resources to be able to give to them. And so long ago, for instance, As a young guy, just moved back from university, and my buddy called me 2 o'clock in the morning to say, "Hey, I got a flat tire. I'm in the neighborhood. Could you come and help me out?" And sure, jump off of my comfy bed, jump in my car, fly out 2 o'clock in the morning, came back home 6 o'clock. No biggie. I would sleep till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and go about my day. No problem at all. But now, given the stage of life I'm in, with patients the next day, with children, with a spouse, if I do that now, then I'm leaving my spouse to look after the children throughout the night, so I'm shafting her. And also, I'm shafting every single patient the next day, because they will come to see a doctor who is tired, who is sleep deprived. And so I shortchange them as well. So my point is that if we have the ability to help, we help. That's not a problem. But these three rules are for people who tend to be a bit more proactive in that regard and who tend to find themselves burnt out in the process of helping others. And again, because the need is so dire in the world that we live in right now, and there are people who want to be their brother's keeper and people who want to help, these three rules can help you in making those decisions. So it recently happened. A buddy called me, "Hey, I'm in some car trouble, 2 o'clock in the morning. I know what kind of friends I have, right? They're constantly having car problems." And so what I said to him was, "Hey, no worries. Let me call the towing company. I'll stay on the phone with you, right? I know you're in a safe neighborhood. And when the towing company reach, I'll hang up and you're good to go." And so said, so done. It took a half hour. Instead of me having to get off my bed, go to my car, drive there, help him fix his car, and then leave, which would take 3-4 hours to do. So it's not that we're completely shutting the door. It is the fact that we're helping on our own terms. And if I had to sum up everything here, it's that we help on our own terms. This is really important because many times when we have the predilection to help, we bend over backwards for people. And again, I'm not saying that this is a rigid rule. Sometimes the situation might call for the need is so dire or the possible consequences are so great that we must step in and do things that, we may get burnt out in the process, but we do it, right? But for regular everyday life, I always advise people to help on your own terms. You're not helping, and you're not helping to burn yourself out on one hand, on one extreme, but you're also not being closed off and selfish. These rules help us to find balance in this regard. So today was a fairly simple lecture. It took decades of a lot of shadow work, a lot of introspection to be able to arrive at these three sort of guidelines or rules, and this overall arching theme here. People may see this video and they may say yes, they may say no, and they may internalize it, but take time, write it down, stick it up on your mirror, because this I think is really helpful, and it will really help in the decision-making process as to how we move forward in life to be able to be there for our brothers and sisters whilst also not getting burnt out in the process. So that was the purpose of today's talk. I hope that everyone understood. If there's any questions or concerns, you could feel free to leave a comment and I'll try to answer. I respond to every single comment. And if there's any topics, any ideas that you want me to discuss, I'm happy. You also leave a comment as well. I'll happily try my best. So my name is Dr. Roshan, and class dismissed.